Once upon a time, in the heart of a bustling city, there lived a little dog named Max. Max was a Jack Russell Terrier, a small but sturdy fellow with boundless energy and an insatiable curiosity. He spent his days trotting around the city with his tail held high, sniffing every lamppost and chasing after squirrels. One day, while out on one of his daily adventures, Max stumbled upon an old, weathered bone. It was bigger than his head and looked like it had been buried for a long time. With a happy bark, he started digging with his paws to unearth the prize. And once it was free from the dirt, he proudly trotted back home with his new toy. He paraded around the house, pretending it was a ferocious animal that he had caught in the wild. He dropped it at his owner's feet, looked up at him expectantly, and then snatched it back when his owner merely glanced at it. Max was convinced that this bone was the greatest treasure in the world. The next morning, Max was out again, this time in a different part of the city. The sun was shining brightly and the birds were tweeting merrily. Suddenly, something caught Max's eye. As he stood staring, his tail began wagging slowly, then faster still. In front of him, what looked like another dog was walking towards him, a dog that seemed to have a bone in its mouth. But it wasn't just any bone. It was Max's bone, the one he had buried the previous evening. At first, Max thought he must be mistaken. He blinked a few times. Maybe it wasn't his bone. Surely his bone wasn't just out walking by itself. But as the other dog drew closer, Max could see that it was his bone. It was his bone, all right? And it was definitely in the mouth of another dog. This realization filled Max with a surge of anger and determination. He barked furiously and charged forward, his eyes fixed on the bone. And the dog holding his bone didn't even seem to notice him. He kept walking as though there was nothing in the world that mattered more than taking that next step. Max found himself lagging behind as the dog carrying his bone disappeared around a corner. He paused for a moment, catching his breath and wondering what to do next. On one hand, he wanted to give chase, to run after that dog and get his bone back. On the other hand, though, he was tired, and the idea of giving up the chase didn't appeal to him at all. After a few moments of contemplation, Max decided to call it a day. Instead of chasing the dog that stole his bone, he decided to go home. As he walked away, he couldn't help but feel disappointed in himself. That night, when Max went to sleep, he dreamt of bones, big and small, and how they were always just out of his reach. In his dream, he chased them through fields and over hills, but he never caught up. They would vanish into thin air before he could grab them. He woke up feeling dejected and even more hungry than usual. All that running around had worked up an appetite, and now he couldn't find his bone. For the rest of the day, Max moped around the house. He didn't want to play with his toys or go for walks. All he could think about was his bone and how he'd lost it forever. When his owner came home from work, he tried to cheer up a bit. He knew his owner would be upset if he saw how sad Max was. So he put on a brave face and wagged his tail hopefully when his owner came in. But it was no use. His owner was too distracted with his own problems to notice how sad Max was. He gave Max a pat on the head and told him to be a good boy while he got changed. After that, he left Max alone again. Max sighed. No one understood how much he needed that bone. It was the best bone he'd ever had, and he didn't know where to find another one like it. He felt so angry and misunderstood. Why did everyone treat him this way? Why didn't they understand that he needed that bone? All of a sudden, Max had an idea. He would go out and look for his bone again. He might be tired, but he was determined to get his bone back. No matter what, he wouldn't give up until he had it back in his mouth. As Max made his way through the streets, he started to feel a sense of purpose. It didn't matter if it took him all day or all week. He would find his bone. Nothing was going to stop him. Hours later, Max was still searching for his bone. He had walked miles and miles and was starting to feel really hungry. But he refused to give up. He knew that his bone was out there somewhere and he would find it eventually. Just when he was about to call it quits, he spotted something in the distance. It looked like a dog, but it was too far away to tell for sure. Max started to walk towards it, his tail wagging hopefully. Could this be the dog that had taken his bone? If so, he would get it back once and for all. As Max got closer, he could see that it wasn't a dog at all. It was a little girl holding a bone. And as she turned around, Max's heart sank. The bone in her hand was his bone. It was the same bone that had been stolen from him days ago. And as she looked down at it, Max realized that this was the same bone that he had seen in his dreams. It was the bone of destiny. And now, it was within reach. He balked excitedly and ran towards her, hoping that she would give it back. But the little girl didn't seem to notice him. She was too busy playing with her bone. Max was getting desperate. He needed that bone, and he needed it now. He barked again, louder this time. But the little girl still didn't seem to hear him. In a moment of inspiration, Max did something he hadn't done in years. He stopped barking and wagged his tail. Maybe if he acted like a good boy, the little girl would give him his bone. To his surprise, it worked. The little girl smiled and offered him the bone. Max was in shock. Was she really giving him his bone? He couldn't believe his luck. As soon as he took the bone from her hand, he ran away as fast as he could. He didn't stop running until he was back home and safe in his bed. Max was exhausted and couldn't eat a bite. All he could do was stare at the bone in his mouth. It was the best bone he'd ever had, and he knew it. And as he drifted off to sleep, Max realized that greed isn't always good. If he hadn't been so greedy and selfish, he wouldn't have lost his bone in the first place. But now he had it back where it belonged, and that was all that mattered. The next morning, Max woke up feeling refreshed and ready for a new day. He didn't think about the bone at all. Instead, he went out for a walk and played with his other toys. He even made a new friend, a little girl who lived on the corner. Max was so happy that he didn't have the bone anymore. He realized that it wasn't worth losing his friends and family over. From that day on, Max was a changed dog. He wasn't as greedy or selfish, and he knew that no bone was worth more than his friendship. So if you're like Max, remember that greed isn't always good. Sometimes it's better to be content with what you have than to risk losing it all for more.